Hey everyone, how's it going? You're watching Lumpur, and in today's video I wanted to talk about the news event, the accident that everyone in Singapore is talking about today. So yesterday there was a guy who was driving a 2-year-old Porsche 911 who was speeding down the highway and he lost control of his car. He hit a curb and the barrier off the side of the highway, flipped over that barrier into the off-ramp, hit 4 different cars while tilted 70 degrees to the side, and subsequently crashed into a tree where his car caught fire, was trapped inside, and the driver died. I wanted to make this video because I'm a car enthusiast at heart, and I also love driving. I grew up around my grandfather, who was a great driver. He used to pick me up from school every day, and I would say that he was the original Squeeze Benz of the 1990s, before Squeeze Benz was even born. And what's out there right now are 2 comment threads that are 40 comments long each on the Singapore subreddit, as well as a whole forum thread that's 60 pages long on local Singapore forum Hardware Zone talking about this accident. And I've read through all of those comments, all 60 of those pages, and I've concluded that most of those people in those comment sections don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So I'm here to tell you what I think went down with 99% confidence and how to avoid getting into such a situation when driving yourself on the highway or on the road. So to kind of break it down over here, what people are saying, they're saying things like, oh, maybe there was a mechanical failure, maybe the guy was drunk, maybe he was on drugs, maybe he had a medical issue that he couldn't control and then he accidentally stepped on the gas pedal nonstop and just lost control. Like, fuck all that shit, right? The bottom line is, he was going at a very high speed, probably at a speed that exceeds the highest speed limit in Singapore, which is 90 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, and he lost control of his car around a light bend due to mostly skill, or the lack of skill. It's not the speed that's an issue, although the media and people in those forums, all these normie drivers, will make a big deal out of it because they want to crack down on speed. The cars should be limited to 100 kilometers an hour before they're sold because speed is dangerous. All that bullshit propaganda, fuck off, okay? Because you could be having this same problem at 40 kilometers an hour if you don't know how to drive a car like a Porsche 911 especially, which is a car that is not a good starter or even second car for a person who is new to driving because it is a mid-engined sports car. So the way that cars usually work as we know them is that when their engine is in front and you lose control at a high speed on a highway, on a turn, on a bend, the car tends to understeer, which means that the car isn't turning as much as the steering you're turning, right? So you're turning like this, but the car is kind of just turning like this. And what happens is that you tend to then drift off into the other side, right? Opposite of where you're steering, because most of the weight is already in front in the engine bay. And when you do that usual NPC normie driver thing of stepping on the brakes, it actually makes the problem worse because notice how most cars, when they brake from a high speed, they're kind of dipping downwards, their nose is facing the ground, like at an angle. That's what happens. Your engine is already in front, you're braking, and then the nose kind of dips down. And so more weight is placed here. What happens when more weight shifts forwards in a car? Your ass kind of turns loose, right? The butt of your car is going to lose traction, and that's how you spin out. However, for a mid-engine sports car like the Porsche 911 over here that this guy crashed, the dynamics is different, right? So the tendency here is these cars tend to oversteer, which means that when you're doing this, you want to turn that around that little bend a little. The car tends to do this. That's what oversteer is. It does more turning than the amount that you actually wanted when you turn the steering wheel. The way to combat this is actually the opposite of how you would drive like a conventional car because of the engine placement in the middle. That's a change of where the bulk of the weight of the car is sitting. When you let off the gas like a normal car, the weight kind of tends to float upwards, which means that your tires lose traction on the road, right? And that means less contact, and that's how you spin out like this guy. The way to actually deal with this, if you so happen to own a Porsche 911 yourself, or you get the chance to drive a mid-engine sports car, is to actually step on the gas. Because when you step on the gas, the weight of the car is now leaning downwards. And what happens when you lean downwards? The wheels now have more traction. And it is going to be more tricky than with your traditional cars, which is why a car like this should not be your first car, should not be your second car, should not be your third car unless you have a shit ton of driving experience. Just like how you can't drive like 80 most of the time and then decide one day you're going to go on the Autobahn and try out driving at 200. You got to progressively work your way up. It's the same shit in life and everything. Day trading, learning, ballet, whatever it is. You can't start out right at the max level. You got to start at level 1 and work your way up. Same shit here. Just take it easy, step on the gas, and you got to have the steering input. You got to start steering it to make sure that you're correcting for that oversteer. And it's going to be tricky, like I said, right? Because this is an advanced tactic that not everyone is able to do and not everyone has experience in doing in the first place. Now let me show you an example video over here from a guy named Where's981, probably one of America's best drivers. He wants to allow his girlfriend or the person who is dating or whoever that lady is to drive his Porsche 718, and she subsequently lost control in a manner that's not dissimilar from how this guy in Singapore lost control of his 911 yesterday. So you can see this video over here. I'm watching it too on my screen. She's driving straight. She's driving at 110 miles an hour, which is 170 kilometers an hour, way too fast for her skill level. And she wants to make a turn around this lane hog, but she loses control of the car because if you watch this video for yourself, you gotta hear the engine sound. She keeps letting go of the gas and then stepping on the gas, and then she lets go of the gas, and that's like a freaking recipe for disaster. Because it's not just that you don't operate cars like these, like your typical front engine cars, it's like you can't freaking make up your mind in the first place. You just step on it, let go, step on it, let go. Guess what's gonna happen? Tires gonna lose traction, car's gonna start to wobble, You don't know what to do as a first time or inexperienced driver. Car loses control, and it actually spins out to the point that the head of the car is facing the opposite direction of traffic flow. Much like that accident yesterday in Singapore. Now you're probably going to hear a lot of people around you and the media start to blame, oh my god, it's speeding dangerous, right? As they typically do with their classic propaganda. By the way, most speeding cameras are a form of additional taxation on the average citizen. It is not for your safety, bro. It's just for your safety, right? Some bean counter is counting on your calculator how much money they can extract out of the average person driving on the road. And this is your argument. This is how this shit probably went down, I can say with 99% confidence. And this is what you got to tell your normie friends who are going to point out to you like, oh my god, next time you should have speed. Remember that guy in the Porsche who spun out and blew up his car and died because he was speeding? Yeah, speed is always going to be a factor in accidents because who the hell is stupid enough to have an accident while they're stationary parked in the parking lot? But there's always going to be a secondary factor, right? And how much of a role that secondary factor plays in that accident is quite usually as much, if not more, than whatever speed that the driver was driving at when the accident happened. That's it for today, and I hope you learned something. See you all in the next video. Goodbye.